this 14th of October Championship Series picks edition of the MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code MLB SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome, everybody, to the MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. Today is Monday, October the 14th. We are here to have a look at Game 2 of the NLCS series that takes place first this afternoon. Before we look at the entire ALCS series and the Game 1 fixture, particularly joining me on this Monday morning is Mr. Scott Reichel. Scott, what's happening?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to the two games today. Feel like it's kind of a weird spot where we were going to preview the AL series, and then we're like, oh yeah, there's a game 2 going on before the AL series started, so we got to cover that too. So yeah, it should be fun. Hopefully more fun than Game 1 was yesterday, which was ugly. Not a great day for New York sports fans. Shout out to the Liberty for winning the WNBA. But the Giants played at night. They looked awful. Saw the Mets no-show the entire game. Not the best day for New York sports fans yesterday.
No, it wasn't I didn't enjoy the football particularly yesterday. I didn't do very well. I had one main bet, which was for every team in the two main windows to score 10 points. And the very last team, FTC, fuck the Cowboys, with their 9 points, and they were the only team who didn't make it to 10 points in that window to cash my 4-1 play. But they dragged it out so long as well. So with the last team before, if they'd lost early, I could have got to bed. That would have been fine. I don't mind losing, but when they dragged me all the way out till 1:30 in the morning in order to get beat, so yeah, disappointing. But yeah, we'll get onto the baseball. I didn't know it was Thanksgiving Day in Canada. Is that correct? I don't know why BA would be lying to us. So happy Thanksgiving Day if you are in Canada. Welcome along, Squirrels, this year. Jason and Ralph as well.
I think I've ever heard of that. I've never heard of that before. There's Thanksgiving in Canada?
Well,
am I out of the loop?
They must have something to give thanks for. They probably give thanks that they're not American, Scott, would be my idea.
That's fair. I just didn't know that there was like a date that was in mid-October about it.
Yeah. I didn't
know that.
We've got,
cool.
We've got a second abstract Homo sapiens telling us that it's Canadian Thanksgiving as well. So yes, happy Thanksgiving. And I'm amazed you haven't got better things to do than listen to me and Scott today, but we appreciate you being with us. I felt like the baseball over the weekend, Scott. We went from a week where we had lots of underdog winners, lots of underdogs with chances. We had lots of games with lead changes. And then we just got into a weekend of favourites dominating. All of a sudden, the Dodgers put the Padres to bed really very easily. The Padres went out with a whimper. They'd be really disappointed having got the lead in that series. We just had one-sided games. Cleveland squeezed out Detroit, fairly straightforward. And then they followed it up. The Dodgers squeezed the living daylights out of the Mets in what was effectively a non-competitive game last night. So it just seems to have flipped a little bit. And I've had to kind of remind myself a couple of times today that it is baseball and it can change, because we could be sitting here this time tomorrow, Scott, with everything completely flipped on its head with the Mets and the Guardians win.
Yeah, especially with a bullpen game scheduled for the Dodgers here for Game 2. But I do want to point out the Dodgers are one inning away from history, because I'm not sure if you actually realized, but they have not allowed a single run in 33 straight innings, which is tied for the postseason record. So they are 1 inning away from setting the all-time record. I believe it was with I want to say 66 Orioles, I think. But point is, the Dodgers pitching staff's been great. Flaherty was phenomenal. I know I was kind of making jokes about him because he was clowning Machado in his last start, and he hadn't actually made a good postseason start in years. And he was great yesterday. The Mets looked like they were a team that came out a bit flat. I know the Dodgers jumped on Senga early. You could argue that Senga shouldn't have really been on the roster because he hadn't done any rehab starts. He gave up the home run to Schwarber in the first game of that Philly series, and they started him again. He had nothing. I think he threw 30 pitches and only 10 of them were strikes. So it was not exactly a good outing for him, but it felt like the game was over in about 2 minutes. Once Muncy hit the single after Mookie didn't tag up in the first inning from that long fly ball at the center, then it just felt like the Dodgers had all momentum. The Mets didn't really generate any chances for the entire game. The one time they did, Winker got thrown at him between second and third base. But I am a bit salty the under 8.5 didn't get there because, once again, one team didn't do anything, and the Dodgers scored 3 in the bottom of the 8th. So pretty unlucky there for the under 8.5. But I also did like the Dodgers to win game 1 and the series at plus 125. Good start, so we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You stole my stat there, Scott. That was the one thing I had noted down to try and make it look like I had some sort of
You gotta go first. As soon as you lose.
Baseball pedigree, but you've got in it. Certainly was the 66 Orioles, 34 innings scoreless. Fairly impressive stuff. We'll start with we'll go chronologically. So we'll start with the Mets at the Dodgers this afternoon. Remind you first about Underdog Pick'em, one of the biggest venues for all sports: NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, WL, NBA, and NASCAR. You can use specials boosts, all flexed entries. Our code is MLB SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MLB SGPN. So, game 2 today is 4:08 Eastern. It's a nice, perfect UK-friendly time for me. That's 9:10 tonight. So the Mets at the Dodgers with Sean Manaea, left-handed pitcher, going for the Mets. The Dodgers is indeed a bullpen day. Without, I know that they've had a couple of bullpen days in the playoffs so far. Normally list Landon that kind of early, but they haven't listed anybody at all. So we're not sure in what order they're going to go. Not that it really matters particularly. The Mets are plus 125, the Dodgers minus 150, and the total here sits at 8. So, yeah, bullpen game for the Dodgers. Jack Flaherty going 7 innings yesterday will help immeasurably with that, because they'll have a fresh bullpen to get into it. They've got Walker Buehler slated for game 3, I believe, and then Yamamoto will come after that, but they'll cobble it together today. Sean Manaea pitched well against the Brewers in the playoffs. He pitched beautifully against the Phillies in his second outing, and I loved how he approached that Phillies game, by the way. He just looked in control. The amount of times we sit and talk about teams, and it's as obvious as it sounds, that have got a plan, that have got an approach, and Manaea did, and Manaea seemed to be in control of what he was doing. So I trust he can go well again. Will undoubtedly have to show a little bit better control than Kodai Senga did last night. The money line was tricky. Both sides, actually. You could make a case for both sides. Both sides, I thought, were a hair too short. But I'm going to take the Mets this afternoon. You kind of forget how resilient the Mets have been, especially in this recent run. They've absolutely showed the ability to bounce back. They would have come into this series determined to take a split. A split was an absolute dream result for the Mets from these first 2 games. So that's still live. So I think they can get back on the horse today. I've been to a funeral today, Scott, and one of the things that come out to go to a funeral is they preach a little bit of hope. So I came out of there. I went into the funeral thinking the Dodgers are going to smash them 10-0. I came out of the funeral thinking, let's go Mets. We can get back into it. So the funeral, put me on the New York Mets. You don't get many funeral picks on the show. I'm going to take the Mets on the money line at plus 125, Scott. What have you got?
So I think that the one thing that kind of bothers me is the actual price, because I think we'd agree that Manaea is a better option than the
Yeah.
Dodgers' entire bullpen going for 9 innings. But they're going for the record, which means the Mets probably score a couple runs in the first inning just to sabotage the record. But point
But
is, I do think based on the actual price, I gotta lean Dodgers. I just feel like this line should be bigger. I get that you have no starting pitcher for the Dodgers in theory, but I just feel like this line should be bigger based on what we saw in game one, based on the overall firepower this team has. Ohtani was great. Muncie came through. Betts looked solid as well. Nobody in the Mets did anything. I mentioned it in the episode with Dylan yesterday. The Mets hadn't traveled to the West Coast in basically like 2 months. So I thought it might be a bad spot travel-wise, trying to like get readjusted to West Coast life, and they appeared like they hadn't traveled to the West Coast in a while. Came out very flat. But after game one, I feel like the Dodgers should be bigger favorites. I get the argument as Manaea has been good lately. He was good against Milwaukee. He was amazing against Philly. But that offense looked great. Seems like the Dodgers got all of the momentum right now based on just them coming back from 2 elimination games via shutout against the Padres. It just seems like this team's clicking, and I feel like based on the talent disparity between them, I thought this price was too cheap. I thought the Mets should have been, in my opinion, around plus 135, plus 140. Thought
yeah,
the Dodgers should be like minus 160, minus 165. We didn't get that. So even though I agree with you, I'm not saying the series is over immediately, not saying the Mets are dead, but when I have to at least evaluate these games, I got to go based on price. And I feel like based on how much better the Dodgers did look in game one and how the Mets have relied on constant heroics to get by, if the Dodgers offense is hitting, they got problems. And I just think that this price feels a bit cheap from what I saw, at least, when these two teams matched up. I'm going to go with the Dodgers to get the job done. I probably would have taken the Mets if it was plus 135 or higher, but plus 120, it's just not enough for me in Dodger Stadium. I'll go with the money line play on the favorite here. I think the line should be a little bit steeper, and it's not. So based on value, I'll go with the Dodgers.
mate, do you know what? That was my exact sort of pre-funeral thinking. Was I wanted both? I could take both sides with an extra 10 or 15 cents, and that's why nothing really appealed to me. It's like the bookies have absolutely smashed it. I've had a little look on odds checker. Actually, I can find a plus 130 about the Mets, so I don't know if I could sell you at a plus 130. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. In terms of player props, again, the books have been pretty sharp today. T. Danetti's joined us in the chat. Welcome along. Liked us over. Sean Manaea out, I looked at, because the Mets need him really to go long. And he has pitched 7 innings in 2 of his last 3. But a little bit like the plus 125 price, they've got the line at 16.5, and that scares me. I could take 15.5 maybe, but again, they've absolutely smashed it. And on the offensive side of the ball, and this is a really obvious play, but sometimes, the chalk's good chalk. Shohei Ohtani he woke up again last night. He's slugging over 500 against left-handed pitching. Sean Manaea splits against lefties, has been slightly wobbly, and he just looks dangerous, absolutely dangerous. Started to go, instead of just trying to pull everything last night, there's a little thing Freddie Freeman does sometimes where Freddie Freeman can sort of it's almost like a cricket shot. I would sort of like a straight bat. And Shohei Ohtani looked like he had that in his locker last night, and he's a real danger, that sort of centre, right centre sort of thing, that when Ohtani can just spank it, line drive that way. Over 1.5 total bases for Shohei is plus 135, Scott. That would be my player prop there.
Yeah, I still like Ohtani to do well here. Ohtani did bat 288 against lefties in his career, 7 at-bats against Manaea. He's batting 286. I actually like Ohtani to get a single in the game, and that's available. That's at plus 120. He's had at least one single in 8 of the last 10 games. He's had at least one single in 14 of the last 17. 14 of the last 17, and it's plus 120. That sounds like a good deal to me. I think Ohtani can get a single. He had 2 of them in game 1. So I like Ohtani, but you like bases. I think he might get multiple hits in this game. So I don't mind the single there at about plus 120 as my prop. I know in game one I did like my favorite prop was Alonso under 1.5 strikeouts. That got there, but now it's a minus 165, so I can't run that back, unfortunately. I think Manaea should pitch fine, but it's also just a spot of, do I want to go back to the earned runs? And unfortunately, under 2.5 earned runs is minus 160, so I can't take that. It was a pretty affordable price the last couple outings, not so much now, but I think I like the under in the game. I know that I was wrong about the game one total because the Dodgers exploded in the 8th inning because Buto kind of fell apart there. But I think 8.5 is too high. I think we agree Manaea's been pitching well in the postseason. Dodgers, of course, have been doing very well, not giving up a run in basically 3 straight plus games. I see a lower scoring game. I think that even though the Dodgers broke through for 9, the Mets did nothing the entire game one. And again, starting pitchers, I know it's a bit different in this case because they don't really have a starter for this game. The Mets have been really bad early in games offensively, and they've constantly been relying on breaking through against bullpens, but the Dodgers bullpen's been very good. So I don't mind a lower scoring game. A couple ways to get there. Maybe the Dodgers win comfortably like 5-1 or something. Or maybe it's a close game, comes down to the wire, and it's like 4-3. But 8.5 still feels high to me. And I think that with the exception of Senga getting shelled, and with the exception of Buto giving up a bunch of runs in the 8th inning, that game still goes under, despite the Dodgers generating a bunch of hits. So I like the under in the game at 8.5.
Sean Manaea is 5-1 as a road underdog this year as well. So a little bit of positive information there from Manaea. Abstract Homer Sabian wants the Mets team total as a possibility, which I'm guessing is over 3.5. And Jason's gone for Dodgers under 2.5 earned runs in the first 5, minus 145. We will move on to the American League Series. I'll let you know about Rhythm, SGPN's proud partner. Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform, helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive models. You can build your own model or use one of the top performing models off the leaderboard. Claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com /rhythm, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Sounds like everyone wants the Otani bases over on Rhythm today. And BetUS, the best in the business. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. Easily deposit using crypto, lightning fast payouts. You can win a 1960 Ford Mustang if you sign up and deposit $100 too. Use our link to sign up and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. Promo code SGPN. BetUS is America's favourite sportsbook. I logged into my DraftKings account yesterday and they stopped operating in the UK. I don't know what all that's about. That was gravely disappointing. We need to get that banner down, Scott. Where is it? There it is. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if that was part of the read. Sorry. Whoops.
Oh no, it's just me talking bollocks.
I thought you were going to say I can't use DraftKings anymore, but thankfully I can use BetUS, and it just never, the tie-in never came. I was waiting. Sorry about that.
The sportsbook was never a thing over here, but we could always play DFS. So I play lots of DFS baseball and lots of DFS NFL, and logged in yesterday, and it was all defunct. And I had to cash out the tiny few dollars that I had left. So yeah, great, disappointing. So I'm going to have to try and find somewhere that I can play MLB DFS. Right then. Series, the ALCS starts 7:38 p.m. tonight. The Cleveland Guardians at the New York Yankees. Firstly, in terms of the series, Scott, Cleveland are trading at plus 160. The Yankees minus 200. Home advantage 2. Scott, is that minus 200 price justified? Do you have a little feel for a series correct score, anything like that?
Well, I think it makes sense. I'll put it this way. The Yankees were one of the only teams that actually won their division to advance to the second round.
Yeah.
Or to the third round, technically. But I ended up seeing the Dodgers get through as well. That's another team. But the Yankees, despite not hitting that well against Kansas City, pitched very well. In fact, I believe they're the only team in the entire field to not allow a bullpen earned run in the entire playoffs. Like, the bullpen's been incredible. Shout out to Luke Weaver, by the way, who randomly turned into like a top 4 closer in the league for no reason. But the point is the Yankees were favored to make it out of the American League, especially once you were surrounded by a bunch of AL Central teams, because you had the Guardians, you had the Tigers, and you ended up having the Royals, and it's like the Yankees, and it's like, all right, well, they usually lose to the Astros, but they're not here anymore, so why would the Yankees not get past here? I mean, you could argue about payroll, and the Yankees obviously have the more expensive roster by a wide margin. You can look at the actual talent on paper. The Yankees on paper should win the series. Now, Cleveland's bullpen's been great this entire postseason. We saw that in the closeout game against the Tigers, where they were just able to kind of smother the Tigers' bats as the game went on. Wasn't easy. There were some guys on base, but they eventually did the job, shut the door, and they ended up winning the series. But I understand the price. The Yankees historically have kind of owned Cleveland in the postseason, especially for the last few years. Bad memories like 20 years ago or so, but recently it's been pretty solid for the Yankees. I understand the price. Do I think Cleveland is screwed? No. I think it's going to be a close series. I'm not picking the Yankees to blow them out. If you want my actual thoughts for a score, I'll go Yankees in 6. I think that the Yankees do have a bit more firepower offensively when things are clicking. They need Judge to get going, though, who was a complete non-factor in the first series. Did walk a couple times. I know he had the double in game 4, so maybe that might jumpstart some things. We know Soto had some good games, but it just felt like the Yankees were getting by on good pitching. They stranded a bunch of guys on base, which is going to be a problem, but they also work a lot of counts. They walk a lot. I think that can result in high pitch counts for some Cleveland starters. Plus, Cleveland's rotation. How many guys do you actually like in that rotation? Because they got Bybee, who we've seen look fine in the playoffs. And then you're going down the line, and I'm going to ask you, how many starters do you feel good about? Honestly, for either team, because the Yankees have Rodon pitching. Gila hasn't pitched in a couple weeks. Cole had one really good start, one really bad start. But what does Cleveland have? Because Boyd's been going, but he went like 2 innings in that elimination game against the Tigers. Do you like either rotation more than the other? Or do you think that that could be a potential issue for either of these teams?
I think if you were handicapping this sort of on a daily basis, if this was a Tuesday in August, pretty much any matchup, I think you'd lean towards the Yankees. They've got, you say, Bybee, Boyd, Alex Cobb. There's nothing much else in there, and they have got a vaunted bullpen, but the Yankees, the bullpen numbers, there's nothing much between them at all, particularly. The Guardians edges it, but that's all. It's not clearly separated from. The Yankees have been quite surprising. So, and I think the Yankees just have more options. I think the price is justifiable. It is a little bit dull. The Yankees have kind of got through the playoffs as well, fairly bloodlessly so far. They haven't looked in too much jeopardy, even though I don't think they've played well, which is kind of a good sign. I mean, where are we looking there? Cole Rodon, Clark Schmidt, we like as well. Luis Hill is another option. So I just think they've got more options. And then you've mentioned the likes of Luke Weaver and Tommy Carnley's another they like. So
even
I
Clay
think,
Holmes. They turned Clay Holmes into a 7th inning guy. He's been good.
yeah, absolutely. I've got the Yankees in 5. As much as I didn't want to sort of write off the Guardians completely, but that's plus 450. I think the Yankees can win the 2 home games. They'll then split back in Cleveland, and the Yankees will finish them off back in game number 5. So that's my feeling on that one. Hopefully, I hope I'm right. I hope the Guardians make it a little bit more competitive. The game 1 tonight, the 7:38 first pitch, is Alex Cobb taking on left-handed pitcher Carlos Rodon. The Yankees going off at minus 160 here, with Cobb and the Guardians at plus 135, and a total of 7.5. Scott.
Yeah, so for this one, by the way, to mention the actual score that I have for the series, 4-2 plus 350. We both agree on Yankees minus 1.5. That's plus 105. Just for reference there, for some prop stuff.
Yeah.
For this actual game, I don't trust Rodon at all, so that's kind of why I am leaning 6. I think Cleveland could take game 1. It wouldn't shock me. Yankees haven't exactly played in a couple days. Maybe some rust plays a factor. They were fine in game 1 offensively against Kansas City, but they, once again, just had a bunch of guys on base via walk, and they scored a couple runs via bases-loaded walks. They just stranded a bunch of guys in that game. They won the game. I thought Cole didn't pitch well at all, but they were able to work counts. And I do think that they can get a lot of guys on base in the series in general based on their approach at the plate. They've been very disciplined. They've been able to get guys on. They've not been able to generate big hits besides one guy. Stan's been doing all of the clutch hitting for this team in the series, or at least the first round. They need more guys to step up, whether it involves Judge especially. You have Jazz, who had the meaningless home run in Game 2, but that was basically it. He didn't do anything else for the rest of the series. Wells was really bad the entire series. They might end up flipping. Maybe they'll end up putting Stan in the 4 spot and then Wells at the 5. Maybe they'll switch around the order a bit. But for this game, I just feel like based on the price, I really don't want to lay this number with Rodon. I just really don't, because I don't trust him. And I feel like it's definitely, I think it makes a lot of sense not to trust him, because we saw how bad his game turned into after looking like he was going to throw a no-hitter for the first 2-3 innings against Kansas City. And then one bad thing happened and everything unraveled. So I don't want to lay this with Rodon, but I do think the Yankees can come back. I like the Guardians' first 5, actually. I'll fade Rodon. I think if you want to go for the Guardians' first 5 team total over, I don't mind that either, but I don't trust Rodon at all. He can't hold runners. Cleveland can steal bases, whether it involves Kwan, who was great in the first series. Shout out to Kwan. You also have Ramirez, who did nothing in the first series besides hitting that home run later on in the series, which they needed. I believe that was Game 4. He hit a home run. Point is, though, I do think Ramirez can get going here. He's been good against the Yankees in the past. He steals bases. I think that can be an issue for the Yankees pitching staff. One thing Kansas City really didn't do, at least as often as I thought they were going to, was run. Garcia stole a couple bases. I know Isbell got caught stealing, but they were successful when they tried it. I think that Cleveland will definitely try it. So I like Cleveland first 5 in this game. I don't mind Cleveland first 5 team total. I'll fade Rodon. I think the Yankees might come back and win this game. But for the actual price, after what I saw from Rodon in that Kansas City series, why would I assume he's going to piece together 5-6 innings of stress-free baseball? I can't. So I'll go with Cleveland to keep this game very close early on. Give me Cleveland first 5.
Yeah, I like that. You mentioned Stephen Kwan, and he's kind of very much a poster boy of what Cleveland are. You've got 2 clubs here with very different approaches. Cleveland is all matchups. It's all pitching matchups. It's all lineup changes. Lots of bits and bobs players. Stephen Kwan being a great example. He hit over 500 in that previous series. They're really flexible. They're really versatile. And the Yankees are very, very traditional. Top-heavy rotation, top-heavy lineup. Alex Cobb lasted 9 outs against Detroit on October the 9th. That was his first start at September the 1st. So maybe it blew some of the cobwebs off. Didn't pitch much in the regular season, only 16 and a third. Really quite tough to analyse. You haven't got much of a sample size from Alex Cobb. I like his under on his walks prop, actually. He doesn't walk many batters at all. But I haven't seen any lines. So when he come out now, I had loads of Yankees pitching lines. I had loads of Rodon lines, but I couldn't find anything for Alex Cobb. Let's have a look. Picture. Oh, there we go.
It's really tricky in general to find the lines for Cleveland's pitchers, because you know that they're not afraid to pull everyone for the actual bullpen, and you get a bullpen game from the 3rd inning onward. So it's not because they think Cobb, they don't know how to price him. The problem is they aren't sure how long he's going to go. But he's at like 1.5 earned runs. His hits are at 3.5. You're assuming he probably goes like 3 or 4, unless he pitches very well. You're assuming he probably goes 3 or 4 innings. So that's kind of what you're working with, but that's why the line is so low on those props, because they're expecting them to get pulled. Quick leash, maybe like Boyd in Game 5, probably not as extreme, but they might just pull him maybe one time through the order and call it a day.
So under 1.5 walks is plus 115 for Cobb. Now, you've just made the case that I don't think he will go very long into the game, which helps. And he doesn't give up many walks even when he is on the mound. So I like that a lot. I like that more than I expected. I thought that was going to be a minus 120. Well, plus 115 for Alex Cobb on the under 1.5 walk. And the Cleveland bullpen's ready to go as well, absolutely rested and ready to go. So they don't need to leave him in. They don't need to. They'll just throw everyone today. I don't particularly want to rely on Rodon. similar to the case you just made. Didn't pitch well against the Royals.
He did early, and then he
more...
had one bad inning, and then he completely unraveled, which I feel like is the Rodon signature move, isn't it?
He has been more reliable at home. I'll give him that. He's got excellent career numbers against Cleveland. I think the total, the over 7.5 looks good. T. Donetti in the chat likes that as well. Both pitchers are fairly unreliable. Both ends have been good. You're expecting a good performance from them too. But I think we can get over that 7.5, Scott. Player props, I like Rodon under on the strikeouts because I'm not sure how long he'll last. It's at 5.5, but it's juiced. It's quite heavily juiced, -156. He's only reached that once in his last 4 starts. He'll be on a shorter leash. And Cleveland don't strike out much. Certainly the top of the order, particularly. One player who did catch my eye was David Fry. We just talked about Cleveland being very matchup dependent. David Fry's another beacon of what Cleveland do, but has hit really well. Over half a hit for David Fry is -140, but over half a walk. David Fry can walk, over a 16% walk rate here. +160 for Fry to get a walk is a decent bet. So they would be my my player props. I like the over, and then Cobb under on the walks. Rodon under on the strikeouts. And I think David Fry can do something for us.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing that concerns me about Cleveland batting props, which I mentioned in the last series, they pinch hit a lot of guys. So if Rodon ends up struggling and they end up bringing in a righty out of the pen, they really might just convert their entire lineup into a different lineup because they're willing to pinch hit some guys. I know Noel did nothing in the first series. I'm not sure he even got on base at any point. But they might be using him in general because it's a lefty on the mound. So there is a chance to try to find some guys if you want to expect the Yankees to use a bunch of righties out of the pen, which they probably will because they don't really have many lefties in general. They have Hill. That's basically it. It's mostly just righties there. So if you want to fade some Cleveland batters who you think might get pinch hit for halfway through once Rodon does get pulled, I don't mind it. I feel like if I was looking at Noel, for example, if I wanted to go for a prop on him, just to see what his actual numbers are, under half a hit is at +102 on Caesars. He's had 0 hits in 17 of his last 20 games. And in the actual postseason series against Detroit, he had no hits. So I do think that for a guy who is pretty solid against the lefties, at least average-wise, batting .246, which is very good for his standards, I think he might get pulled after Rodon gets taken out of the game. Give me the Noel under half a hit at +102. He was 0 for in the entire series against Detroit. So I think that plus money is a great deal for a guy that might only get 2 at-bats. I'll go with Noel, no hits at around +102.
Noel always makes me laugh because some of the numbers that I use when we're looking for home run props and stuff, Noel always pops off the page, absolutely pops off the page. A lot of the time I look at the numbers, see who jumps off before I look at the name next to it. And today, that name jumped off. The numbers jumped off, and then it was Noel. I was like, oh, here we go. It was the first thing I wrote down, Noel home run at 5-1, but you just can't pull the trigger. Looking for a...
Well, I also wanted to just mention the actual, to kind of dive deeper into the pinch hitting philosophy of Cleveland. I wanted to mention Noel's at-bats recently. So he's played in like all these games that I just mentioned. No hits in 17 of his last 20. To read off the actual at-bats that he's had recently, starting with the 19th, the game against the Twins. 4-2-3-1-2-1, 4-4-2-4-1-4. So either he plays basically the entire game, or a righty comes in, he immediately gets benched. So you're looking at what could be 1 or 2 at-bats here. And if Rodon gets shelled, he might get benched after 1 at-bat. So I think it's a great price for +102.
I absolutely agree with you. That's one of the things where if you just go off the numbers, you could be easily misled down a blind alley. But no, you're absolutely right to point that out, Scott. Dinger prop, quite tricky. The other name that numbers always love is Jason Dominguez, but I refuse to pick him again. I'm going to go back to the Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez. We mentioned the bigger names.
I think yesterday that didn't work. That didn't work out for me, but I tried the same exact player yesterday.
Yeah, well, it's going to work out today, Scott. Okay. The time traveling home run prop. I'm going to steal your time machine will take Teoscar Hernandez to hit my dinger. Have you got one?
Sure. So it was brought up because, once again, a shout out to Jason who mentioned Soto's numbers against Cobb. Yeah, it was going to be Juan Soto. That was going to be my choice, and now the mystery is gone because you just told me how good his numbers were, or you told others how good his numbers were. That was going to be mine. I feel like Stan is the pretty obvious choice for the Yankees based on how well he was performing at the end of that series, especially. Soto, though, I thought had a good series in general. He got on base a decent amount. He was able to walk, which is always a concern for home run props. You hate watching the walks because you want the guy to swing the bat, but of course, for the Yankees' purposes, it's definitely what you want to see. But Soto, for his numbers and 11 at bats, 636 batting average against Cobb, might face him one time. It's 4-1. I think it's a great price. Like, I still think Soto's got a lot of power. I think that Soto is, of course, a serious threat in that lineup. And even though Judge has not been great in the postseason, you don't want to, you still got to approach him with caution. And Judge is willing to work some counts, etc. But you're not going to pitch around Soto to pitch to Judge. That's not going to happen. So I think Soto's in line for what could be a very good series here. We know that he's not afraid of the moment. He already has a World Series title under his belt. Give me Soto at 4-1. Think it's a good matchup for him, and I do think that he can construct solid at bats here. Give me Soto in the spot in Yankee Stadium, of course, with the short porch. They go yard at 4-1.
Thanks, Scott. Nice case, beautifully made as always. I think we are done for the day. Is there anything you'd like to tell the people before we go?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to do like a best bet or something, or if you wanted to just
Okay, yeah, go on. Right, yeah. Well, since I've seen that price, I am absolutely sold on the under 1.5 walks for Alex Cobb at plus 115. I think there's a whole range of different ways you could get there. One of them is by pitching well. One of them is by pitching okay and getting pulled, and he might even pitch well and get pulled. So yeah, under. I didn't expect that price. I like the pick before I'd seen the prices. So my best bet will be Alex Cobb under 1.5 walks at plus 115. Scott.
Yeah, you know what? I was torn between going for Ohtani single at plus 120. I'll go for a plus money play. There were some plays on DraftKings that I actually liked quite a bit, but I'm not going to take them because you can't access DraftKings anymore. So we're going to have a moment of solidarity here where I'm not going to take it. Instead, I'm going to go with the Noel. I'll take the Noel under half a hit at plus 102. It's a great price. No hits in 17 of the last 20. He might get pinch hit once Rodon comes out of the game. I think it's a great number. Plus 102 for Noel to continue doing nothing in the postseason. I think it's a very, very solid deal. I'll take that at plus 102.
Nice. Thank you very much, mate. Good luck, everybody in the chat tonight. Thanks for joining us. Was much fun as always. I am going to go and rake the leaves up in my back garden for a little while. We'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the games, and we will see you all down the road. Cheers.